Alright, so welcome to our oh-so-wonderful Guild War. We've got ourselves a drink, and I'm going to attempt to do something a little differently whenever we get a little further down the line on the Guild War. But in the meantime, I see Zio, Senya, and good old Sage Baal. So, what is the overall plan here? So we have Christy, Shadow Knight, Pyllis, and Roana. In all honesty, Roana does not need to be here. And I'll explain that a little bit later whenever we get a little further. But yeah, we have our typical CRP setup, which is Christy, Roana, and Pyllis. Pyllis just straight up has enough ER to where we can tank any and all debuffs that are going to happen. Sleep's not going to happen. Any of the shenanigans that Sage is going to do to us isn't going to happen. Roana is only there pretty much just because Senya's there. And in all honesty, like I said before, she doesn't need to be there. Because the real issue of when you want to use Roana is really like whenever Choux is there. Because if you have Choux there and you proc things like counterattacks, stuff like that, then you don't have to really worry about your health at that point, because you're not going to take anywhere near enough damage to basically be scared. So basically, we've gotten rid of Zio, and we have no real other issues to really deal with. So yeah, we have Senya here, but hey, our ER is so high amongst the entire team, there's going to be no issues. And Sage is there. Sage is only going to go into Shadow Knight Pyllis. Shadow Knight Pyllis has 100 extra ER, just boosted from the Christy. She has 150 base. Now she's above 70% HP. That's plus 60. So, what is that? 210? And then you add 100 to that. So, we're in like the 300 realms of ER. That Sage is not going to sleep me. There's no way. And even if the Sage does sleep anyone else, which he did on opening turn, he actually managed to hit a sleep on Roana. By the way, get used to seeing that throughout the majority of this Guild War today. Because in this Guild War, we actually fought a lot of effectiveness monsters. Quite a few of them. At one point, you're even going to see Pyllis be affected by some provoke shenanigans later. Not going to be in this fight, and it's also not going to be whenever I have Christy. It hasn't happened yet, boys. As soon as having Christy on my team and Pyllis is actually affected by a debuff happens, oh, I'll make that in a crate. That's going to be an interesting occasion. I'll tell you that right now. But either way, the threat of Zio's gone. We don't have to worry about DPS and damage. Senya is almost dead, and this was a S1 EE Senya, so she was meant to be getting a little bit more HP back, but this Senya just wasn't thick enough, wasn't doing enough things in general. Didn't have any ER, by the way, because if they have no ER, you can just strip them. And then if they're stripped of their counterattack buff, well, what kind of good is that S1 EE going to do for you? And this Sage also doesn't even have enough HP to like really be a threat, but I understand the issue that he has to go through is Sage also has to be really, really fast, because you want to get that first turn in, and with that first turn, you want to sleep the other team. But hey, if you just come into this like with a little bit of ER prepared, you've got nothing to really worry about, and everything is good to go. So yeah, the first round's already over. Now, let's get into round 2. I attempt to do something interesting. It doesn't work. So, yeah, we have the new spec change for Ainos 2.0, and we also have Sonia here, just because I felt like being cheeky about it. And I had Alencia just for Apocalypse Ravi and Krau, because if I can just hit them with a little bit of injury, this should go off without a hitch. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. So I attempt to go in, and I'm going to do a strip real quick. Now, this is one of the mistakes that I do make, is I waste my time going into the Solitaria. Now, the reason why I say I waste my time is because I'm very positive that this Krau is using Aureus. We'll see it here whenever we get to that point. And also, I don't have a lot of experience using Sonia, so I actually forget most of her kit going through this fight. But either way, the way in which this is all going to work out is I just wasted that turn. I could have used that turn to going into any other unit for the sake of building up some injury. But hey, you live and learn. You learn things every other day. So the reason why I say it was a wasted turn is we're just straight up not going to get any opportunity to hit that Solitaria any other time soon. And also, there's just a lot of unnecessary options that I'm taking with Sonia. For example, one of the things I could have been doing is I could have just been building up injury on a Ravi, just hit her twice, max injury. Then you shouldn't have too much to worry about. And then spend every other turn going into Krau. Now, the other thing I was saying, my Ainos is actually rocking 200 effect resist, so that means that Solitaria is easy 150 plus. Probably even higher. I wouldn't doubt it, because I know a lot of people build their Solitarias with as much effectiveness as humanly possible. And hey, you have every right to do that. Now, I keep getting a lot of the really, really bad debuffs that all land on Alencia. Those two really bad debuffs in general are Unbuffable and Blind. Those are two of the worst debuffs that you could possibly have on Alencia. Why is that? Well, if you have Unbuffable, you do not get Mind's Eye. If you do not have Mind's Eye, you do not get your follow-up attack. Yeah, you lose a lot of your damage that way, and you just straight up don't do anywhere near as much effective injury. Like, you have no real injury potential. So, ultimately right here, I still think I'm doing okay, but around this point, this is where IRL starts to happen. So, around now, I'm getting a phone call, and I just have to actually split my attention. And this is where, like, a lot of other various mistakes are going to start happening. Like, for example, that was a mistake right there. Why in the hell did I go into a Ravi? There was no reason to. Maybe I thought, oh, maybe I could possibly get a kill, but you're still going into Aureus Krau. And because of that, we straight up didn't kill. And now we have Krau. He is at kill percentage. And it's his turn's coming up. He's going to hit somebody with a horse, and they're probably going to die. So ultimately, I'm like, okay, wait, I can still do something about this, but I happen to have Misty buff on Alencia again, and both of these attacks miss. And because of both of those attacks missing, the injury is negligible. Just because of that right there, well, say goodbye to Ainos. Now, that sucks, but the thing that's really kind of funny about this is we can still kind of win. The only other thing that I do wrong here, yeah, straight up, I just wasted that turn. Because my brain was thinking, oh, that's going to give, like, immunity, right? No. Sonia only gives immunity on her S3. And the S2 is the cleanse. It is the cleanse and heal. That's what the S2 does. So, like, that was a huge mistake on my part. But hey, I mean, this was my fault in general. I brought in, like, Ainos and Sonia just for, like, story perspective. If I really wanted to do this effectively, the smartest thing to really do would have been to bring any kind of light bait in general. That light bait being, it could have been Vivian, could have been, hell, it could have been Spirit Eye Celine. And then here is the match where you would bring Roana. Now, the reason why I say that is because with Solitaria there, she's going to be doing her S1 and S2 constantly. Because of that, you are going to be receiving massive heals. And the Apocalypse Ravi is going to be going into your light bait. That could be Spirit Eye Celine, like I said, or it could be Vivian. Spirit Eye Celine probably being one of the better units that you could be. And then for your last unit, you could, in all honesty, you could bring, like, Edward or something. And then you would just be straight up doing, like, crazy damage to the team. And in all honesty, I really don't feel unsafe with that kind of draft. But I just didn't do it, because I'm a retard. We'll go with that. But either way, we decide, okay, so we lost our debut character, so how about we actually play the Guildwar as intended? So, hey, I see Senya, I see Conqueror Lilias, and I see Choux. So, I'm just going to go to my tried and true, which is Arunka, Shadow Knight Pyllis, and Roana. Why do I use this team so frequently, so consistently, all the time? Well, for starters, all of our DPS is on Arunka, and our backup DPS is on Shadow Knight Pyllis. So, that in and of itself is enormous security. So, with those two units in general, we are doing obscene damage with Arunka, and we're not playing the anti-crit game. We are not doing crit damage. You don't care. Doesn't matter. Quite frankly, the only two things that, like, will really piss you off about fighting this team with Arunka is the fact that blind debuff will be a thing, and Provoke will be a thing. And then there's another debuff which you really can't do anything about, which is Attack Down. So it's like those 3 debuffs in general are like your biggest nightmare on Arunka. But it's not necessarily critical. Like, it's not going to utterly ruin your day. It's just going to, like, annoy you. Especially if you have a very, very well-built and, like, focused Arunka. Mine, for example, has no wasted stats. Like, all of the stats are in attack, defense, HP, and speed. So, yeah, she's built just like my Huayan, where every single stat, just 4 stats. That's all you need. And if you just do that, and you have a fairly respectable Arunka with, like, some decent HP, like, yeah, like, I've got, like, what, 15k HP? And I also have, like, a fairly decent amount of defense, and I think I can't remember my stats right off the top of my head, but I think it's somewhere around, like, 6.2 or something like that K attack, which, hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. And she gives herself attack buff with S3, so, hey, it all kind of works out. But, like, hey, that was just Arunka talking right there. That's your damage there. But if, for whatever reason, your Arunka goes down, like, hey, Choux crit you twice, or whatever, with her counterattack shenanigans, Senya hit you, and then you end up killing yourself with the counter, stuff like that, because of the reflect damage, because you're not critting her. Okay, you have Shadow Knight Pyllis here. Now, Shadow Knight Pyllis is unbelievably based, mainly because everything's going into her. So her defense has scaled to astronomical levels. That is plus 150% defense, because it is a buff that will stack 50% defense every time that you're hit, stacks 3 times. That's 150%. And you just have Rocket Punch on that, she'll clean up the rest of the fight. Now, I did debate actually, like, cutting this fight out, because this is really nothing. This is not a special fight. I was going to cut it right here and then just have the units die because it would sync up with the music. But then I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll showcase it. But the biggest thing here that you're going to see is we have Doris. Doris is going to tank every hit from a Ravi, and she's also going to be doing some, like, healing that we need. Alots has Spirit's Breath. He's going to have his S2 every single turn, so then we can boost up whoever we need on the CR bar at any time if they need a turn. And Alencia is just going to be there for the sake of doing injury to Apocalypse Ravi and doing injury to Belian and trying to kill her as quickly as possible. There is only one moment in this fight which is actually, like, truly special to even take notice of, and that is whenever I use S3 on Alencia and I manage to strip the Arowell. And then with that, I'm able to get a Death Break with Belian, and then I'm also able to just kill her in pretty much the same round of turns. That's, like, the only thing that's really super interesting that happens, because this is also an injury Belian, so I'm on the clock bad. But other than that, this is a very, very standard match. It's a whole bunch of CR manipulation. So, instead of commenting on this match, I have decided, let's actually talk about some of the balance changes that are going to be coming, because a lot of them are pretty based. I'll try my best to go through these really, really quick while I'm also watching this, because that one moment that I was just talking about is coming up. But hey, first and foremost, we have Last Rider Krau. This is an incredibly awesome change that they're doing to Last Rider Krau. Basically, they're just making it so whenever you hit him, his cooldowns decrease by 1, and if you hit him with an AoE, they also decrease by 1. So that's a potential 2 per. That's amazing. And it also is apparently increasing his barrier strength whenever he's hit by an AoE. That's also awesome. So, what are they going to do to compensate for that? What they're going to do is they're going to make it so that his S3 has 1 additional turn cooldown. Okay, that shouldn't be so bad. Hopefully it will all work out. And then they also make it so that his S3 is going to scale with speed as well. That's going to be the deal. That's going to be the deciding factor on if he's going to be worth it or not. By the way, there was the S3 strip that I was talking about earlier. So as soon as I get my chance to go into Belian again, it's going to be pretty much over. So, with that said, let's grab ourselves a drink. I'm talking too much. But yeah, that's Last Rider Krau. Looks super fun. I cannot wait to try this whenever it comes out. It does kind of suck because I'm going to have to rebuild him, because HP and speed are really going to be the deciding factors of the most important stats that you need. Next is Closer Charles. What do they do to him? His S3 no longer triggers a counterattack. Okay, That's basically all he needed. And it's exactly what he is. Hey, he's an initiator, does attack buff on his S3, hits everything, doesn't trigger a counterattack. Okay, cool, based. Moving on. Next is Ken. Ken got like a couple of changes, basically in the fighting spirit department for his kit. Basically, he acquires 40 fighting spirit now off of his S2. And he starts with 40 fighting spirit instead of 50 now, but he does not gain any fighting spirit from being hit or hitting things, which I find that a little bit weird. So it sounds like he only gains fighting spirit just off of his celestial kick, which is the S2. And it's like, okay, well, that's alright, I guess. It's going to make him a little bit more consistent in that front, I suppose. But the biggest thing that kind of confuses me is the patch notes don't say anything about removing the skill turn cooldowns on his S3, which I think is the biggest problem that he really has. He needs to have fighting spirit and skill cooldowns to use his S3. What the fuck? He's like the only one in the game who's like that. And okay, so I'm actually starting to run out of time here. So now next is Lilias. Hey, her S1, you just get free 50% crit. Wow, that's fucking based. And then there's her S2, which basically got changed into a passive. It's basically is the same thing, except it activates on the enemy using a non-attack skill. And, okay, this could be very, very potentially interesting, especially whenever we get down to Mort's artifact that also recently got changed. You throw that onto her, and it's going to do some interesting things. Also, her S3, it also has increased critical hit chance by 50. So, hey, hyper-based. She just straight up do damage now. So, hey, that's pretty much it with Lilias. Let's move on. Next is Ilanav. Basically, they just straight up made Ilanav super strong and an injury goddess. I cannot wait to try this unit out. So, her S1, if it doesn't proc the S2, just does more damage. And for the S2, whenever she hits an enemy, if they have injury on them, it sounds like they're going to just deal extra damage equivalent to the amount of injury that's on the unit. And her S3 just straight up does big injury damage to the whole team. That sounds super based. Oh, hey, cool, the match is over. So, let's move on. So, basically, we're on this fight right here. I see Winter, and I see Troublemaker Crozet, and Summer Break Charlotte. So, what I was wanting to do was I was wanting to use Taeyou, and then I had Destina there just for the sake of if I needed either a revive or if I wanted to proc the Winter. But, like, I didn't really see a good opportunity to do it, because here's the first non-attack skill. That non-attack skill is going to go on, and now, like, Taeyou's prepped and ready to go. Now, fortunately, even though we were unlucky enough to be hit by the Charlotte, we also got 15%. Or, straight up, that Summer Break Charlotte had no effectiveness at all, and the Enrage actually, like, pulled through with a little bit of, like, awesome effect resist baseness. Either way, we have Enrage, we're ready to go into S3, we're going to strip everything right here. Now, with them all being stripped, we just need to move up the turns a little bit, and as soon as we're able to do that, we can kill the Summer Break Charlotte, and then we can also kill the Winter. Super, super easy. So what we're going to do with Choux is, because she has Death Pen on her S2, do a phenomenal amount of damage to Troublemaker Crozet. Waste our turn with Destina. Destina really didn't do much of anything in this fight. Then we'll use a Soul Burn to S1, go into Summer Break Charlotte. The shared damage will kill Troublemaker Crozet, and unfortunately, we didn't kill Summer Break right there. However, when we go into Summer Break now, the additional attack from the S1 is going to kill Winter. God, Taeyou's so fun, man. And here, this is just an odd pick. I guess I understand what he was trying to do. Hey, we have our one sustain with Ray, and then we have Choux here to, I guess, scare the other people, and then we also have Charlotte. So, ultimately, I'm not afraid of this team. I have Shadow Knight, Pyllis, and Roana there basically just as my front walls that will take, like, all of the real abuse here. And Rimuru is there, who is going to be just proccing non-stop into stuff because they have buffs. So whenever they have buffs, that's going to trigger Rimuru's S2, so he's just going to attack them, steal their buffs, and then he's just going to go in and just murder. And I, quite frankly, don't even care if I don't crit. So his S3 also functions on a successful attack. So because it's also a neutral attack, I can go into a red unit, and I have nothing to worry about in terms of, like, missing or any of that jazz. Because if you miss, that's where you don't get the additional damage. That's their supposed balancing, so it doesn't have to... It doesn't, like, screw up evasion or whatever. However, Rimuru is still absolutely ridiculous. So we killed the one real threat, which is Charlotte, and now with Charlotte gone, all we have to worry about is the sustain, which is Ray, and then we just have Choux over there as well. And the Choux is really not even a threat. As soon as Rimuru is able to get to his S3 again, she's just going to die. Like, it's that easy. And because we have souls, we can soul burn the S3, reduce the cooldown, and then we can kill Ray. That's basically what's going to happen. So let's go back over to these balance changes. So Tywin also recently got, like, a buff. His is pretty interesting, because apparently he is immune to debuffs which prevent movement. What are those? Sleep and stun. And if there is an ally in the back row, and they have... Like, I have to actually read this. When the ally in the back row has a debuff which prevents movement after being attacked, activates Commanding Shout on the target. This can be activated once every 2 turns, and Commanding Shout dispels all debuffs from the ally and grants immunity for 2 turns. That sounds awesome. Super, super awesome, just in terms of, like, cleansing debuffs and shenanigans like that. But... And... Then, yeah, they also buffed his S3, where... it attacks all the enemies again after ascends Sword Storm, and with a 100% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns, and increase defense of all allies for 2 turns as well. So basically, instead of just giving himself defense buff, he gives everybody defense buff. Wow, that's something that should have been changed probably literal fucking years ago. And it also gets like 1 extra soul. And he's also going to get changes to his exclusive equipment, so you can look that up later. And here's the other one that I'm pretty excited about, is Christy. Christy is just getting a change where after being attacked, when the caster does not have a debuff, it increases the combat readiness of the caster and the ally in the back row by 20%. Can only be activated once per turn. That actually sounds super awesome, because what she had before was, oh, I'm just going to do a little counterattack to you, which is like, well, what the fuck? This does nothing. But now it does combat readiness stuff. Like, that's sick. I cannot wait for that. It fully justifies running a 0 speed Christy. And there's my Ainos, by the way. Sadly, it didn't quite work out. But hey, we'll see in the future. I didn't have enough speed, guys. Sorry. And then Crown of Glory. When an ally suffers an attack that targets all allies, decreases damage suffered by 10 to 20%, and it removes 5 souls from the enemy. When more than 1 damage reduction effect is applied, blah, 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 you can't stack it, shit like that. So Crown of Glory basically just got a straight-up buff to kind of be like a Proof of Valor, but for AoE attacks. Hey, that's kind of based. Pretty good. And then we had Ancient Dragon's Legacy. That's Mort's artifact. So after the caster uses a non-attack skill, which, like Lilias, like I was talking about, decreases skill cooldowns of all allies by 1 turn, and the skill down reduction effect can only be activated once. So it just says once. That kind of concerns me, because it makes me think, oh, so like it can only happen once in the entire fight? That kind of sucks. But like, I don't know. We'll see how that kind of works out in the future, and if they decide to elaborate on it more or not. But either way, yeah, those are the balance patches. These are my oh-so-wonderful stats. And hey, I'm hoping you guys are having a wonderful day. We're almost at the end. But hey, I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you can, go ahead and leave a like on these videos. They do wonders for my mental health. And if you like any of my other videos, feel free to subscribe. That's how you can go ahead and see more of my stuff. Hope you have a good one. Later.